Day 3 at the base with the sand still warm. Thunder on the peak like a beating storm. Boundaries marked, don't rush that line.
There is exactly one moment in all of Scripture where God speaks his law directly to an entire nation with his own voice and not through a prophet, not through an angel. His voice from a cloud heard by every man, woman, and child standing at the base of a mountain. Today we read Exodus 20. It's the 10 Commandments, and what happens after God finishes speaking might matter more than the commandments themselves. So welcome back to Come Listen With Me. I'm Ricky Black, aka Elder Eleazar, and this is our Tuesday, April 21st reading for week 17 of our ongoing 2026 Come Follow Me study of the Old Testament. So all 26 verses, the 10 Commandments, the people's response, and God's instructions on altar worship. Now, as we start, let's give thanks to our Father in heaven for the opportunity we have to read his word today, right? And let us hope that they land fresh in our hearts, not just as ancient rules, but as a living covenant, like that we may be changed and we can grow from what we learn as we read, and that he helps us hear what the Lord is also asking of us today. So, all right. 26 verses, 10 commandments, and one decision by the people of Israel that changed the trajectory of everything. With that, let's come listen together. Now, before we begin, of course, we always want to start by focusing ourselves so we can read with intention, not just passively. So, a couple of questions for us to consider as we're going through the scripture today. First, God identifies himself before giving a single commandment. I am the Lord thy God, which hath brought thee out of the land of Egypt. So why does he ground the law in relationship and rescue before issuing requirements? Then, the Hebrew word behind jealous God carries connotation of deep, sensitive feeling, not petty envy. So how does this reshape the way that you can read the second commandment? Finally, the people hear God's voice and choose distance. In DC 84:23-24 says God had intended something more for them, to behold his face, but they hardened their hearts. So what was lost in that moment of fear, and what does it teach about how we respond to the invitations from God? All right, so with those in mind, let us begin. So we're going to start by setting the scene. You see, yesterday we read about God's arrival at Sinai, the fire, the smoke, the trumpet, the trembling mountain, but today he speaks. Now in Deuteronomy 4:12 through 13, it confirms that the people heard God's voice declaring the 10 commandments from the cloud. This wasn't Moses relaying a message, right? This was the entire nation hearing the creator of the universe speak directly to them. Now scholars often point out that the 10 commandments follow the structure of ancient Near East suzerainty treaties. They're agreements between a great king and a vassal nation. So the king identifies himself, he recites what was done for the vassal, and then he states his terms. And that's exactly what we're about to read. So keep all that in mind. Okay, now that we've set the stage, let us start by reading verses 1 through 3. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. So before a single commandment, God identifies himself. And he does it through a relationship, not abstract theology or ontology or soteriology or any of the other ologies. It's not, I am the omnipotent creator of the universe, right? He just says, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out. So he grounds his authority in what he's already done for him, right? So the law flows out of grace, not the other way around. And then the first commandment, no other gods. Now the Hebrew is literally before my face and has nothing between you and God. So it's not a priority list where God is number one and he is the only one on that list. It's really talking about the nature of your relationship. There should be nothing between you and God. So when you think about that, don't think about, did this mean that there were other pantheons and other deities that are out there? Because that's not what it's saying. Think about, what do you have that gets between you and your relationship with God and doing the things which he has asked you to do? Because if you have something between you and God, you have another God before his face. All right, let's move on to verses 4 through 6 here. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Okay. Second commandment. No graven images, nothing in heaven or on earth or under the water. Now, the Egyptians worshipped all three categories: sun, moon, animals, right? Insects, crocodiles, fish, everything. So Israel is being told to leave every bit of that behind, the old world they were used to. Now, jealous God, see, President Oakes, he pointed out that the Hebrew carries a sense of sort of possessing sensitive and deep feelings. So it's not a petty envy, right? This is the passionate care of a God who knows that idols will destroy you. And he refuses to watch that happen passively. And notice the math here, right? Judgment reaches 3 or 4 generations, but mercy reaches thousands. So the ratio is not even close. Mercy overwhelms judgment by orders of magnitude. Let's go on to verse 7 here. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Third commandment. Yeah, this is one that gets kind of quoted or referenced a lot, right? Can be kind of confusing. Well, Elder Renlund, he gave one of the most illuminating readings of this verse that, honestly, that I've ever heard, right? So the Hebrew word for take means to lift up or to carry, like giving a banner, right? Carrying a banner, right? And vain means empty or deceptive. So the commandment becomes, don't carry God's name on your banner if you do not intend to represent him well. So that's not about profanity or using, the Lord's name as sort of an expletive, although you probably shouldn't do that either. It's what it's about is what it means to bear his name through baptism, through the temple, through dedicating yourself to him and taking on those covenants. I belong to the Lord, right? I'm in that covenant relationship. And what does this mean here? And we see this later even in the New Testament when, Jesus is dealing with all these individuals. Again, the reference to their lips draw near, but their hearts are far sort of situation here. So don't be a vain or sort of halfway in the pool here, representing yourself as, belonging to the Lord, or in this case as a Christian, while you're not exactly doing the things that he's asked of you. And that's really what it means. Just don't be false about your relationship with God. Let's go on to verses 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So, 4th commandment, right? The longest one. The Sabbath is grounded in creation itself. God rested, not because he was tired. He did it because he was modeling something for us. Now, President Nelson taught that the Sabbath is a sign between us and God, and that the question, what sign do I want to give God, replaced all of his do's and don'ts list, right? And we'll see in Exodus 31 that God reaffirms this as a perpetual covenant sign. So it's good. Keep the Sabbath day holy. It was actually made for you. All right, let's continue on here. We're going to go to verse 12 now. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord the God giveth thee. So that's the 5th commandment. And this is the bridge between the Godward commandments and the humanward ones, right? And it carries a promise. The only commandment of the 10 that really does, right? That thy days may be long upon the land. For Israel, this meant remaining in the promised land. For us, it points to something even larger. Let's get to the second half of the 10 commandments. We're going to start with verses 13 and 17 here. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet his neighbor's wife, nor his servant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. So 6 through 10, it's just a rapid fire, right? Murder. Now, the Hebrew word is ratzach, which specifically means an unlawful killing. So not all killing, right? If you end up taking life in defense or military action and those sorts of things, or, there's an execution in accordance with the law, those would be acceptable. But murder, right, that would be the unlawful killing. That is what it's forbidding here. And adultery, right, a violation of the covenant. Stealing. And notice there's no direct object, right? You can't take anything that isn't yours, period. False witness. So lying to damage someone else's reputation, completely verboten, don't do it. And coveting. The only commandment that addresses the heart, not the action. So you can keep the other 9 externally while actually breaking the 10th internally. And Jesus, he builds on this later in the Sermon on the Mount on exactly this principle, right? The law was always about the heart. Keep that in mind. It's hard to do, I know. All right, let's move on 18 to 21. And all the people saw the thundering and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, not that ye sin not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. So this is the moment that changed so much for Israel, right? They actually got to hear God's voice directly. I mean, how many of us would love to have that experience? No matter how terrible or awesome that it would be, right? It would be an amazing miracle. But they also see the fire and they feel the terror, and they as a nation chose distance, right? Saying, Speak thou with us, but let not God speak with us. They were so terrified of it. And Moses, says, Fear not, but they are afraid, and so they pull back. And while they pull back, Moses draws near, into the thick darkness where God was. So what a line, right? Like the same experience that terrifies the people is the one that Moses walks into. And maybe there's a lesson in that. Getting close to God and being willing to accept his blessings, his miracles, and his presence can actually be very terrifying at times. It can be hard to move forward in faith into that sort of terrible, unknown. But it's absolutely worth it when we get there. We just don't always know what the blessings are going to be. Now, Doctrine and Covenants 84, this is 23 to 24. It gives us the restorations reading of this moment too, right? So Moses had sought to sanctify the people so that they could behold the face of God. There was some preparation here. But they hardened their hearts and could not endure his presence. So Joseph Smith said that God cursed them with the carnal law because they refused to receive what he was offering. And that was the higher law, the Melchizedek priesthood. It was the ordinances that would have brought them directly into God's presence. All of that was on the table, and they just weren't ready for it. They said no, and maybe that's a sign of still some of the trauma from 400 years in Egypt, right? But that refusal it's the hinge of everything that follows this week. Let's continue on, 22 to 26. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. And an altar thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings, and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thine oxen. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stone. For if thou shalt lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. All right. So God ends with instructions about worship, and they are deliberately simple. An altar of earth or unhewn stone. So no tools, no steps, no human craftsmanship imposed on a divine worship. Like the altar is raw, unpolished, not shaped by human hands. And there's something really powerful and meaning to that, right? So the place where you meet God should bear his character, not yours. It's that simple. And yeah, that's all our reading for today. It's Exodus 20, 26 verses. It's the 10 Commandments, the people's retreat, and a set of altar instructions that feel kind of almost anticlimactic after all that thunder and fire and smoke, consuming the entire mountain. But it does set a good order to things. But also, the thing I keep coming back to is verse 21, right? The people stood afar off, and maybe that's the anticlimactic part. There was an amazing climax coming. Now Moses drew near, and those two responses to the same God and the trajectory of Israel's entire history, it turns on that split in that moment. And we also face that same choice. So like every invitation to go deeper into your covenants and every prompting to enter the temple or open the scriptures or kneel in prayer when it would be so much easier not to, or in many cases, it might be terrifying to do those things. Those are Sinai moments. And we can stand afar off, or we can draw near into the thick darkness where God is and enter his presence. So here's my question for you. Where are you being invited to draw near right now? What would it take to stop standing at a distance? Let us know. If you're willing to share in the comments, let's have a conversation. And, you never know what experience you've had might actually inspire others as well. So open up and let us know what you have to share. Looking forward to hearing everything. Now, tomorrow, we're going to be in Exodus 24. It's the covenant ratification ceremony, right? So blood sprinkled on the altar and the people. And also 74 men are going to ascend the mountain. They're going to see God, and they're going to eat a meal in his presence. It's one of the strangest and yet so beautiful passages in the Torah, right? So don't miss it. It's a fantastic section. Also, today's deep dive article is the moment Israel chose distance. So it is about what D&C 84 reveals about what God intended at Sinai versus what Israel ended up actually receiving. And the link it's in the description, and I know you're going to get a lot out of it, so please go check it out. It's a quick read. So that's all I have for you today. So until tomorrow, as always, I appreciate you all, and thank you for choosing to spend some of your precious time to come listen with me.